Hi guys, this is Sandra of the Alexandrite system, and we are once again here with Silver of the Ring system.
Hello, it's us again.
We are going to link them down in the description as per usual. Today we're going to be talking about times where it should have been obvious that we were a system, but singlets didn't notice.
Yeah, kind of like if you had any idea what being multiple was at all, you would 100% be clued into this, and we have no idea why you don't understand that something weird is going on right now.
I feel like it's sort of this weird ground of like, maybe they did notice, but like, either they didn't say anything or they just kind of like wrote it off.
Yeah.
Where, I don't know, singlets TM.
Singlets TM.
So I think the quintessential thing of this experience is sudden mood changes, or what is perceived as sudden mood changes when it's actually a noticeable switch. I think the biggest one for us is probably pretty much anyone into Claudia. There will be times when we're at work and let's say Dice is fronting, because Dice to Claudia is a big mood difference in general, because alters aren't generally just defined by one mood, but if you know someone, you can kind of do like a baseline impression of them.
Yeah.
And if you were to do a baseline impression of Claudia, it would be and if you were going to do a baseline impression of Dice, it would be like, ah. But yeah, just going from those two different people, it can be such a radical difference. It will be like Claudia's out at work and she's having just a miserable day, and then Dice switches in and suddenly things are just wonderful, guys. Like, let's get to work. Things are going to be fantastic, after Claudia was like, fuck this place, fuck this job. I am so fucking done here.
I think it's a lot similar for us, because our most drastic switch is from anyone to Montana, because Montana has the biggest case of resting bitch face I have ever seen.
Protectors be like...
Anyone else in our system has a lot more expressions of emotions and a lot more expressions of just joy in general. And to go from being happy and sociable and like content or excited about something to like showing absolutely no emotion with a face that looks like you could die at any point, and then you try to make a joke and she's like, okay, is quite the difference just in our system and like between switches. Another thing that goes along with this is alter accents. Like, some alters will have different vocal patterns or different speech patterns, and some have drastically different vocal patterns, speech patterns, and accents from each other. Montana speaks in a British accent. I don't know what accents are anyways, so I think it's a British accent. Whether it is a British accent or not is up for debate, but she speaks very differently than anyone else in this brain, and it's so surprising to switch in front of people and have them absolutely not pick up on that at all.
Yeah, like Ellen in our system also has a British accent. She was described by somebody in the comments as somebody who like went to college in England in like a really posh area and then stayed there for like 30 years to work, which I think is the most accurate description of how Ellen talks I've ever heard. She can do an American accent, and she often will when she is fronting, unless it's like with people we are comfortable with, but sometimes it does slip out, and she still often has that like melodic tone that often comes with British accents, and nobody says anything.
Montana does the thing too where she's very good at mirroring how I talk and pretending to talk like me, but sometimes it just doesn't work because just of the way she holds our throat is so different than anyone else. I also feel like that kind of just segues right into our next topic, which is littles being littles. For some reason in high school physics, so this is like advanced placement physics, so it's also a hard class, Iris decided she was the master of physics and decided she wanted to front as much as she possibly could in the class, which led to scenarios such as Iris putting a box on her head and running around during lab. No one noticed.
No one noticed?
No, well, I mean, people noticed, but like, they were like, oh yeah, that's just Silver, which is, I don't put boxes on my head and run around in physics class.
I feel like with little stuff, people are more willing to like write it off as maybe like you being really silly.
Yeah. And the thing is, we still did fine in physics class, because at the end of the day, as a system, we're built to function in situations where we need to function. So even though Iris was fronting a lot, it was always at times where she could front and be herself, and that wouldn't actually interrupt our understanding of the class or how we did in course content. So because that wasn't being affected, I think that also tied into why people didn't see it as out of the ordinary.
With our littles, well, Susan isn't exactly a little. She's a middle, basically. She's 12. There was this one time at work. Susan doesn't work for us often, but sometimes she'll go in. We trust her to do our job a lot more than I trust some of the adults in our system to do our job. We do interviews at our job. We interview people and hire them. And she conducted an interview one time. She mostly knows to do an impression of me, or to sound grown up, because Susan has a little bit of like a little girl voice. Hi guys, this is Susan of the Alexandrite system. I'm gonna do an interview today. Why do you want to work for us? Like, that's basically my impression of Susan. So it was a little bit of that voice, which probably was a little weird coming out of like us in formal wear. So she was like kind of dipping into that while also kind of doing her hello, this is Sandra impression of me. I think this is obviously something where I don't expect someone to say something if something's weird, where it's like, you're not going to say to the interviewer, like, you're being real friggin' weird right now. You're just going to go, and pray that they give you the job. I think we gave that girl the job. I can't remember. We have a mental script that we go to, social scripting, and, like, she said most of it, but she's, like, stumbled over a lot of it. So we just kind of looked like weird and not super prepared for this interview.
There's definitely times where Iris can front and it can come off as just like, I'm really tired and really out of it and really loopy. Also usually because I am tired. And Iris tired and me tired looks a lot more similar than Iris awake and me awake.
Yeah, that's similar to us with Sunny, because Sunny often comes out around bedtime because they like to cuddle with Mads. And yeah.
All of your littles in the system make me just go.
Our littles are amazing. Like, shout out to our littles. When Sunny comes out at night, it can sometimes be hard to tell when I'm out at night and I'm being like a little bit silly because I'm tired. I'm with my partner at the end of the day. I'm just like, it's relaxing time. And when Sunny's out and being silly because they're Sunny and they're a weird little kid. One problem we run into with people who aren't me and like a couple of the other regular fronters who are like kind of covert about it, is that a lot of the people who hang out inside more are very used to saying we instead of I. I'm gonna go back to Susan at work, because there was this situation where Susan was out at work and she was working with one of our coworkers, and she said something about like how something has been there since before we started working here. And the other coworker has been working there for like 15 years. So she was like, maybe before you started working here. And Susan didn't even process that she said we. She was just like, we started working here. And she was like, what? Oh, since I started working here. And she was like, the royal we. Another thing was that we go to a trans support group. Shout out to our friends who watch this. Not everyone there knows that we're a system. Our close friends there obviously know because we love them and cherish them. Some of the other like regulars, but not really regulars, either don't know or they know but they don't care or aren't saying anything. So Marigold was out one time during.
She has a big crush on Josh.
Yeah, she has a big crush on one of our friends. So she was out for a meeting because she wanted to spend time with him. She was just talking up a storm and she would not stop saying we. We feel this way a lot and we did this a lot, and like just in the back of our head I'm like, girl, please shut up. I love you, but please stop blowing her cover.
Yeah. We have a similar situation with Iris sometimes, but it's not around the word we. Iris, so what happens is when Iris is fronting and doesn't know what to do, she'll like ask, what should I do? And I'll be like, hello, this is the password for this thing. Or if someone asks her a question, she'll ask me for the answer internally, and then she'll say it outward. But instead of just saying the answer, she says, Silver says this.
Oh,
or
no.
Silver says we have to go to class in 10 minutes. And it's like, I love her so much, but it's very hard for her to get herself to not say that in front of people.
Do people ever catch you talking out loud to your alters? Do you talk out loud too?
We don't talk out loud to our alters.
Okay, we talk out loud sometimes.
Very rarely, like once every 4 months or something.
I feel more often we don't like have very loud conversations out loud, like full volume, but we'll kind of like mutter to ourselves, or we'll like mouth to ourselves. Like involuntarily. It will be like, it's like we're talking and we're having a conversation, and I'm just kind of like mouthing out both sides of it, like without realizing. And now that I'm saying this, I realize that I've always done this. And because of course I've always done this. There will be times where people are like, you talking to yourself? And I'm like, yeah, talking to myself. No one else here. No one else who I would be talking to.
Yeah. The most we ever get is if someone's making a comment while I'm doing something. Sometimes I'll go, hey, and then like, didn't say that out loud.
At work, actually, we all wear radios at work. Sometimes if we're in a group and we just respond to something on the radio and the others don't like hear what we're responding to, they'll be like, what? And I'll be like, oh, just talking to the voices in my head. And I just like motion to the radio. And they laugh because, you know, it's funny to say things like crazy, you know? I find it's also sometimes useful if you catch yourself talking to yourself. It'll be like, oh, just talking to the voices in my head and motion to the radio, but you're actually talking to the voices in your head. That used to be something when like hands-free cell phones used to be a thing. Someone in my extended family was saying like it's like weird or dangerous or something because you can't tell like who the crazies on the street are anymore, which like,
oh, that's some hot ableism right there.
Oh yeah, for sure. But also like good for them. I'm glad that they have some kind of excuse if you like hear voices that much and need to talk to the voices that much that like you have to do it out loud in public. Yeah. Like I'm so glad that people like now have that sort of excuse where it's just like stick in a like AirPod. Bluetooth, an AirPod, Bluetooth headphone, and just talk to the voices. Like nobody gives a shit anymore. Yeah. It's great.
I walk around campus all day and there's people just talking. They just like start talking randomly and I like kind of freak out a little bit because I never use hands-free calls, and then I remember that people use hands-free calls and I'm like, oh, they're just on the phone because I think they're gonna talk to me, and I'm like, oh no. And then social anxiety.
Yeah.
I think our last example is a very individual example because you guys walked into breakfast today and I was like, oh my gosh, you're here, it's so good to see you, how are you guys? Kind of like very loudly because I was really excited and there was very little people in the room, and there was definitely a guy like standing 10 feet away that like gave me a weird look but like didn't say anything. So
now that I'm thinking about it, there was this lady with her two kids that I saw behind you that looked at me weird a few times, but I don't know if it was a you're talking about like weird stuff look or if it was a you're visually trans look.
Yeah, there was, you know how there was a couple that had 2 coffees next to us on the long table?
Yeah.
Yes, the woman kept looking at you and I noticed they had very little conversation. I was a little worried they were listening in on us, but also I didn't care anymore.
Yeah, like we're never gonna see them again.
No, we're never gonna see them again, and like if we talk about system stuff in public, that's just like another exposure that is totally fine and normal.
Were we even really, like, obviously talking about system stuff?
I know we were obviously talking about trauma stuff at one point.
Oh, we said DID like 17
times,
yeah. Didn't we?
No, because they were looking at me when I was ranting about the 2012 DID study that I really hate. So I know I at least said the word DID at least like 5 or 6 times, and I said dissociation and like trauma a lot.
Why isn't this just like a normal conversation?
Yeah.
Like, why can't we just be 2 normal psychologists going out to lunch and talking about DID? Why do we have to appear like we're crazy people?
I mean, like, we also, after that conversation, said, like, yeah, I realized a lot of research was wrong when I realized that I had DID.
Yeah,
and then we said that loudly a couple times, too. But even then, we shouldn't be seen as crazy. It should just be, like, normal because we're normal, and this is a normal reaction to childhood trauma, and, like, we should be accepted and loved by the general public, just like anyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It really shouldn't have to be something that you have to hide. I mean, this is just, like, talking about general disability activism in general, where like going back to that thing one of my extended family said, where it's like you can't tell who the crazies are anymore. It's like, one, stop calling them the crazies. Two, like, who cares? Like, that is a, like, it becomes like a tool for a disability.
Also, the crazies are more likely to be empathetic towards you and be better people than neurotypical sometimes. Yeah. Isn't it? I forget whether there's definite statistics that say people with DID commit less crimes.
I think there are definite statistics saying that, like, mentally ill people are the victim of crimes more than they are the perpetrators of crimes by, like, I think... 10%? 10 times?
10 times more likely to be the victim of crime than a perpetrator.
Yeah. Which are some, like, absurd numbers. But I think the point I'm trying to say is, like, these are things that we shouldn't have to worry about. Like, this shouldn't be something that is constantly on our mind. We shouldn't have to worry about, like, outing ourselves as a system because, like, being a system isn't something that we should be ashamed of, but society says that we should be ashamed of it.
And, like, honestly, we'd probably live better lives if we could just be out about the system. Like,
oh my god, for sure.
I don't think there's a single person I've talked to with the idea of OCD. And I've been in this community since, like, 14 years old. And I've been in so many circles I cannot count. Every person I've talked to about the subject says that if they could, they'd be out about being multiple. It's just, they're worried about stigma. And they actively work to hide their system from others.
Yeah. And, like, a lot of our stories are about, like, not wanting to out ourselves at work, because outing ourselves at work is, like, our worst fear for this. Because there is such a stigma around being mentally ill. Not that, like, I don't know, calling this a mental illness is always such, like, a narrow, tricky road, because it's, like, I don't feel mentally ill now that we are aware of each other and that we work together well, but it is still...
We're mentally ill in the fact that we have a form of severe PTSD.
Yes, exactly.
But there's so many aspects of our experience due to having OCD that change every aspect of our lives in a way that's not a detriment.
Yeah.
And in that way, I feel weird with... I feel weird about the words mentally ill. I feel weird about the words disabled. Neurodivergent gets close, but I think that's why I like the word multiple the best.
Yeah. Multiple, plural, all that sort of stuff. It just describes the experience specifically. Yeah.
It captures it.
This turned out to be a lot more serious of a video at the end than I intended.
I mean, it kind of, like, went that way.
Yeah.
So.
That's just where the conversation goes when you start talking about, like, oh man, this almost outed me. It becomes like, why should I care about getting outed? And then it's like, here are all the reasons I care about getting outed.
And the fact that this list of this whole video is just us going over situations that we remember specifically because we were nervous about being outed to other people. Like, the only reason why I remember these so vividly is because I'm like, oh my god, why didn't they notice? I would have been, like, so concerned if they did notice. Oh my lord, anxiety time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think...
And on the job thing, I'm super nervous about, like, once job applications and facial recognition technology kick in,
God.
That's nervous because YouTube has our face on it. And my whole goal is to just get high up enough in the psychology field before that happens.
Yeah,
honestly. Like, if I can get to the point where I have, like, a paper published in a reputable journal, then, like, it's like my friend Alice says. You just met Alice, but her plan is to she is covered in tattoos and has bright red hair, and she works in a very high STEM field, marine biology. So her whole thing is she wants a shirtless mermaid tattooed on like her side. And her whole thing is like, I'll eventually get there and work up there slowly, but I want to be recognized as that scientist with the tattoos and the red hair first, and then still be like have a good reputation, and then I can get the more like standout tattoos. And the whole reason why singlets don't notice these things in the first place is because they just don't know that people can be multiple or plural.
Yeah, really. Like, when we came out to our mom about it, she was like, we said, you know, we have dissociative identity disorder because we're not even going to start to explain what OSDD is. And she was like, what's that? And we said, formerly called multiple personality disorder. And she said, didn't they disprove that?
Ooh,
And yeah, that's exactly what I did. Like, on my phone, just at like 9 p.m., just sitting in my room. I'm like,
yeah, that's why I love to explain DID and OSDD without ever mentioning multiple personality disorder, because every singlet's conception of that disorder is just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to second the fact that people just don't know what this is, like, I do a lot of in-person grassroots disability justice, mental health activism, destigmatization work, and even the people among the activism board, like, even the people on the executive boards with me in my 2 organizations I work with, I've had to explain, like, from the ground up what DID and OCD is. And these are people who work very closely with highly stigmatized mental illnesses. These are people who are doing like workshops for the broader community on like how to not be ableist when interacting with people who are mentally ill, and they just like had no idea what it was. And it's such a world, it's very interesting to exist in a world where even the spaces dedicated to improving society surrounding your marginalized identity don't know what your disorder is. Yep. And that's something I've had to grapple with a lot. Anyways, thank you so much for watching the video, and I'm so glad to be back on the channel. I hope you've enjoyed this rambling video.
Yeah, we're going to link you guys down in the description, and there is another part to this collaboration. It doesn't really thematically tie in,
Not at all. But it's about our past experiences with being a system and past experience of needing control and learning to let go of that and accept being multiple and being plural as we are.
It sort of ties in because it's like, this is sort of about other people accepting your system, and it's like you're accepting your system for yourself.
Yeah. It took a long time.
Mood. So yeah, thanks for joining us, guys, and we will see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.